Welcome to Repurpose Journey podcast. I named this podcast Repurpose Journey because for me, life after a diagnosis isn't about going back to who I was. It's about finding new ways to thrive and repurpose my life. It's about embracing the journey of transformation, no matter how difficult it might be. I know how hard it can be. There are days when it feels like the weight of everything is too much to bear. I have had and still have those moments too. But I've also found strength in the small victories, and I want this podcast to be a place where we can celebrate those no matter how small they may seem. I started this podcast because for too long I felt like I was going through this journey alone. But over time, I have found strength in sharing my story and hearing from others. I hope that through this podcast we can build a community where we uplift each other, share what we've learned, and find peace together. Whether you're navigating your own chronic illness, supporting a loved one, or simply looking to understand what it's like to live with these conditions, this podcast is for you. A life-changing health diagnosis can make people feel isolated, but I want this place to be a space to be one of connection and hope. There's so much I can share about my personal experience with chronic illness, and I'm excited to dive deeper into that with you over time. But today I want to give you a glimpse of my journey, just a snapshot of where it began. A little over a decade ago, I started noticing strange symptoms: dizziness, vertigo, the feelings of unbalanced, and a constant ringing in my ears. These symptoms would seem to appear out of nowhere, sometimes lasting minutes and sometimes hours. Around that same time, I also started experiencing terrible headaches that would knock me off my feet. I remember one episode in particular, standing in the middle of Walmart. My vision went gray, my body was drenched in sweat, and I felt a wave of panic. I was completely alone in an aisle, unable to see clearly or hear anything beyond the overwhelming noise in my head. I stood there frozen for what felt like an eternity. Slowly my vision did return, but everything around me felt overwhelming. I managed to gather myself, abandon my shopping, and make it to my car, where I sat until I felt like I could breathe again. That moment was a turning point. I knew something was wrong, but where do you even begin to figure it out? I made an appointment with my GP, but while I waited, things only got worse. I started having heart palpitations, and one night I was so scared that something was seriously wrong, I called my husband, who was working a swing shift at the time, and I made him come home. What followed was a whirlwind of appointments, bouncing between doctors, specialists, and different medical professionals. It was an exhausting process, one I'll dive into in another episode. But after about 1.5 years, 2 years, I was finally diagnosed with Meniere's disease. Even with that diagnosis, not all my symptoms were addressed. The headaches and heart palpitations were dismissed as anxiety, something that happens far too often, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, anxiety is very real, and it's very powerful, but too many doctors jump to the conclusion without digging deeper. But I'll leave that topic for another day. In upcoming episodes, I'll share more about my journey from dealing with medical professionals to discovering natural treatments. I'll also be inviting guests to talk about their experiences, and together we'll explore mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and hear their stories of how they repurposed their journey. These days, I focus a lot on balancing my life. I've developed a routine that works for me, like getting enough rest, avoiding triggers, and practicing gratitude. But of course, every day looks a little different, and I'm constantly learning. A must for me is choosing to see the good, even on the worst days. I wouldn't be where I am today without my husband, my kids, my friends, my family, and my faith in God. Living with chronic illness has taught me that healing isn't always about finding a cure. It's about finding peace and purpose amidst the chaos. I'm really glad you're here, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. Whether you're here to find support, share your journey, or simply learn more, I'm so grateful that you're a part of this growing community. I'd love to hear from you what topics you would like me to cover, what questions do you have about living with chronic illness and repurposing your life, or even self-care. Feel free to reach out to me at the Connect page through my website, www.repurposejourney.com, or on social media at Repurpose Journey. Thank you for joining me today. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, share with a friend, and let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, remember to find purpose and peace even in the midst of chaos.